You're poor, and you're not embarrassed to come to the bank.
As I was leaving the bank after finishing my business, a newcomer spat out at me. Ignoring him seemed to irritate him further, and he started to say something outrageous.
Planning to run away? Then don't ever come back. Poor folks should just stash their cash under the mattress.
If that's how it's going to be, I'll do as he wishes. As you say, I am poor, so I will no longer use this bank. My name is John. I run a factory inherited from my father. Now 63, I still feel young at heart, though I'm more of an analog person and not great with machines. That's why I've completely handed over computer-related tasks to my son. Why don't you hand it over to your son and retire? My wife also suggests, but as long as my body can work, I want to work. It's not that I don't trust my son. Right after graduating from college, he started working at this factory, gaining experience and earning the trust of the other employees. But I just love to work. Working in this industry, we're sometimes looked down upon just for being a factory. Sure, most of our work is subcontracting, and in terms of visibility, we're worlds apart from companies you see on TV. But there are benefits to being a small company. For example, we all nurture newcomers together, and the employees are like family. It's the warmth that comes from being able to sit down and talk with everyone. As I've gotten older, I've come to feel that more strongly. Ever since I was little, my father, Tom, kept saying I would take over as president someday. As a child, I was proud to follow in his footsteps, but as I grew up, it felt more like pressure, and my teenage years were full of rebellion against him.
Study properly. You won't be able to carry on the company like that.
I was always scolded by my father, since I didn't like studying much.
I'm sick of a life decided by you. I'll decide my own life.
With that, I got a job at a different company and left home. Since then, I hardly visited my parents' house, and the relationship with my father was strained. It was about 10 years after leaving home that the relationship with him began to improve. Deciding to get married, I returned home for the first time in a long while to introduce my fiancé. As I hadn't seen him in a long time, he seemed much older. Until then, I had thought of my father as being eternal, unchanging. It's natural for him to age as I do, but I remember being shocked by that realization. Persuaded by my wife, I returned home to work at his company, starting from scratch, just like any other new employee. Recognized by my seniors and my father, I took over as president at the age of 40. It's been over 20 years since then. Though we've had tough times with the economic fluctuations, we've managed to get through by sticking together. There's a major bank branch near the factory, which is convenient and where I always go. It can get a bit crowded, but the bank staff service is always courteous and pleasant. But things changed a bit this year. Among the new recruits this year, there was one with a bad attitude. His name is Ryan. I had dealt with him before when I used the bank. One day, I went to the bank to withdraw $300. He was polite and friendly, and despite being young, he seemed competent, handling his tasks efficiently without keeping customers waiting.
Thank you for waiting. What can I do for you today?
I'd like to withdraw $300, please. After I handed over my bank book, he made an obviously annoyed face.
Just $300.
Yes, $300 is fine.
I'll call your number, so please wait in the seating area.
Though he seemed polite, as I was returning to the waiting area, I heard Ryan mutter under his breath.
Just $300, pathetic.
He must have thought he was speaking quietly enough not to be heard, but I have good hearing. However, I didn't want to make a fuss over such a minor thing and be labeled a complainer, so I pretended not to hear it.
Number 48, your transaction is ready.
I was called to the counter soon after. He appeared to be acting normally, but as I was about to take the money and leave, I heard him mutter again.
Don't come back, poor guy.
I was quite upset, but I decided to just leave the bank. After that, I used the bank several times, and Ryan happened to be my teller. He seemed displeased with me, only making small transactions, and his service became sloppy, adopting a disdainful attitude. Every month, the day before payday, I go to the bank to make deposits. Since we have a small number of employees, that's been sufficient, and I use the bank near the factory for this purpose. Normally, I'd go first thing in the morning or change during lunch break, but today, with a deadline approaching and no time to spare, I thought the bank being so close, I could just go in my work clothes. The bank was just around the corner, so I figured it would be fine as is and headed to the bank in my work clothes from the factory. Today it was quite crowded, and it looked like there would be a long wait. I just wanted to finish up smoothly and get back to help with the work. While waiting for my turn, about 15 minutes later, it was finally my turn. Looking at the counter, the teller was Ryan, of all people. Of all days, it had to be today. Ryan glanced at my clothes and made an obviously displeased face.
Wearing dirty clothes in here.
I'm already used to Ryan's verbal abuse by now. Not wanting to waste time engaging, I pretended not to hear and took out the deposit slip. I need to make a deposit. Sorry for the large amount, I said, handing over the deposit slip. But he didn't take it.
Seems like you didn't hear me, so I'll make it clear. This place isn't for poor people like you. Do you understand?
I've been using this bank for many years, and there's no minimum amount for deposits. Besides, I am the president of a company, so I certainly earn more than a new employee. What's the idea trying to drive away a customer?
People like you, dressed in dirty clothes, just being here damages our bank's image. It's really quite a nuisance.
Ryan said, sighing exaggeratedly. Sure, these work clothes are quite worn, but not to the extent that they damage the bank's image. I'm sorry, but I'm in a hurry today. Can we make this quick? When I responded calmly, it seemed to irritate him.
I'm telling you to leave. Didn't you hear me? Always coming to the counter for such small amounts. Stop wasting our time. Unlike you, I'm not idle.
His words were infuriating, but I had to make the deposit today. The salaries have to be available for withdrawal by 10 a.m. That's the guideline we're given. It's not legally required to be by 10 a.m., and it wouldn't be a problem if it's later on the same day, but it would inconvenience the employees. Is that so? Understood. Hesitating on what to do next, I decided to wait in line again and get someone else to handle it. It took longer than planned, but continuing to deal with Ryan, would be a waste of time. If it was going to take time anyway, better to avoid his rude remarks. Reluctantly, I waited in line again. It seemed the peak had passed, and there were fewer people waiting than before. While waiting in the seating area, I saw Ryan being called over by his supervisor. Getting a lecture, maybe, I thought, and in about 5 minutes, it was my turn, but this time, I was called to a different teller. Without mentioning my attire, they smoothly accepted the deposit slip. Finally, having completed my task, I was about to return to the factory when Ryan stopped me outside the bank.
Wait a minute.
Just when I thought I could finally leave, I wondered what he wanted. Moreover, his polite speech had completely disappeared, now speaking informally. This isn't how you talk to a customer. What is it? I finished my business and was about to leave.
You just said, "What is it?" to me. I get scolded because of you. Don't mess with me.
The scolding he received earlier was probably about his attitude. But this is a ridiculous accusation. It's his lack of professional manners that's the problem, not anything else. He was probably told to apologize, but instead of doing so, he's lashing out. If you get scolded, it's not my fault. Other staff treated me just fine. You're the one at fault for trying to kick me out with your arbitrary logic.
It's your fault for coming to the bank even though you're poor. I was just kindly telling you that you're out of place. You insisted on staying, and that's why I get scolded.
He clearly has no intention of listening. I'm glad we don't have anyone like him among our younger employees. Am I not allowed to come to the bank because I'm poor? There's no such rule, right?
It's not about rules. Aren't you embarrassed to come here?
I've never thought it embarrassing to go to the bank. It's a place I use because I need to, nothing more. Do people really worry about appearances in such places? Do you worry about how you're seen by others when you go to the bank? That sounds like a hassle.
I'm not poor like you. I don't wear shabby clothes even when I'm just stepping out.
I couldn't help but retort. To get back quickly, I decided to ignore whatever else he said. Is that so? I'm in a hurry, so I'll be going now.
Planning to run away? Then don't ever come back. Poor folks should just keep their money under the mattress.
For a moment, I was dumbfounded by his words. Mattress banking, as if I could store the important company funds like that. It contains the employees' salaries. I had trusted this place to keep it safe. But well, if that's how far he's going to go, I might as well do as he wishes. Is that so? Understood. As you say, I am poor, so I will no longer use this bank. Ryan seemed taken aback by my smooth retreat. He probably thought I would argue back and was ready to use that as an outlet for his stress. I'll come back another day to close the account. With that, I returned to the factory. After successfully meeting the deadline and when things had calmed down, I was at another bank, opening a new account. It's a bit farther from both my home and factory than the current one, making it slightly inconvenient. But I chose this bank because I heard I could use ATM services at convenience stores and handle payroll transactions online. I'm not great with the internet, but my son has taught me a lot, and I indeed find it convenient. After opening the new account, I headed to the bank near the factory I always used. My goal today was to transfer all the money to the new account and close the old one. This way, I truly wouldn't need to come to this bank again. The bank was not busy today, and it was my turn quickly.
What can I do for you?
I want to transfer the entire balance of $350 million from this account to another one.
$350 million. Excuse me, but is there any chance this could be a scam?
The bank clerk seemed bewildered by the large sum. It's fine. I've opened a new corporate account at another bank, so I came to close this account.
Just a moment, please. I'll call the branch manager.
The clerk hurriedly went to the back. Guided by the returning clerk, I was led to a partition booth.
Sorry for the wait. I'm Anderson, the branch manager. May I ask why you're closing your account?
I've opened an account at a bank near the station, so I plan to use that as my main bank from now on. Therefore, I won't be using this bank anymore and would like to close my account. Mentioning the rival bank, Anderson looked panicked.
But that's a bit far, isn't it? Considering your factory's location, our bank would be more convenient.
The distance is farther, but I've made arrangements to operate online, so there's no need to worry. Anderson tried to convince me with various benefits, but I had no intention of agreeing.
Is there a specific reason why our bank won't do?
There's a young banker here named Ryan. He told me poor people shouldn't come to the bank and should just keep their money under the mattress. So I decided to close my account to avoid coming here.
What? Ryan said that. I'm terribly sorry.
Anderson was mortified and repeatedly apologized. I've been using this bank for years and always found the service courteous and pleasant. I don't think everyone at this bank shares his views, but his actions were too much. Anderson said he would call Ryan over, and soon Ryan was brought in, looking dragged.
You've been quite rude. What were you thinking, speaking to our customer like that?
Under Anderson's stern questioning, Ryan stumbled over his words.
But I've dealt with this person several times, and he always uses only a little money. It's a nuisance when we're busy.
Anderson was exasperated by Ryan's reasoning.
How can you say such things to our customer? Judging people by the amount of money they use is not fitting for a banker.
Ryan seemed taken aback by Anderson's strong words.
What you did was wrong, and it can't be undone. But what's important is what you do next. Apologize properly to John. I'll apologize with you.
Anderson, now speaking in a calmer tone, urged Ryan to apologize. But, pride wounded after being scolded by his supervisor, Ryan became defiant.
I haven't done anything that requires an apology. I just said it was a nuisance because it is. I'm just stating facts. Even Anderson must think it's a waste of time to be bothered with small matters.
I taught you to treat every customer with importance, no matter how small the matter. I instructed you to handle each task with care. It's the accumulation of these small efforts that builds a good bank.
Anderson's tone remained calm, but his disappointment was clear.
I'm sorry my training did not prevent you from experiencing discomfort. I truly apologize.
No, I understand your words were sincere, as I've been a regular customer. As someone who also manages employees, I felt a bit of sympathy for Anderson. No matter how well you teach, if the person isn't willing to learn, it doesn't mean anything.
It helps a little to hear you say that. I'll take care of the cancellation process for you.
What? You're really going to cancel? Why is Anderson bowing down to someone like this? He's not even going to be our customer anymore. There's no point in sucking up.
Ryan reacted to the mention of cancellation. Thinking about it, his attitude of pandering makes sense given his excessively rude behavior up until now.
Being cancelled by someone like him doesn't hurt or itch me. It's lucky to have less useless work. Efficiency is important, as Anderson always says. I haven't done anything wrong, right?
We were dumbfounded by Ryan's blatant defiance.
Someone like him. You don't understand what kind of person John is, do you?
I understand perfectly. A poor person who doesn't deposit much money, but has the leisure to come to the bank.
Ryan said, laughing outright.
You don't understand at all. John runs a factory and has been managing a corporate account with us, depositing hundreds of billions. You chased him away when he tried to transfer from the corporate account.
Wait, but he always.
When you were in charge, it was for his private matters. There's a separate savings account, so that account doesn't have much in it. He was chased away by you the last time he tried to make a transfer. I even have proof, showing Ryan the passbook. Ryan, who had assumed I was poor, started panicking, realizing he was about to lose a major client because of his actions.
If I knew, I wouldn't have done that. Why didn't you tell me, Anderson?
I did tell you during your initial training, and I've been saying every day to treat all customers with courtesy.
Ryan tried to shift the blame, but it was clearly his own fault.
Please, I apologize, don't cancel. I'm truly sorry. I'll be sure to be more polite from now on.
Though he apologized, it was clear it was just superficial. Apologies now won't make me cancel the cancellation. How can I trust someone who judges and looks down on people based on whether they have money?
I'm truly sorry. I really am reflecting on my actions.
No matter how much he apologized, his words felt empty. If you had said that as soon as you came in, things might have been different. But it's too late for apologies now. It's no one's fault but your own that it's come to this.
Just because I'm apologizing, you think you can look down on me.
His momentary show of humility quickly faded, revealing his true feelings again. Ryan's face was openly sullen.
If you don't shape up, we might have to consider letting you go.
Anderson raised his voice.
Are you threatening me? I'll report this to the headquarters. I'm being bullied by Anderson.
Thinking he had no chance of winning against me, Ryan started to attack Anderson. Perhaps he was hoping to obscure his own responsibility for the cancellation.
You're free to report whatever you want about me to the headquarters. I have nothing to hide, and I will ensure you are dealt with appropriately.
Don't mess with me. I've done nothing wrong. I am.
Ryan kept insisting he was not at fault and acted like a petulant child unwilling to listen. He probably hasn't matured emotionally. That's exactly why you're not trustworthy. You're not really sorry. Don't think you can just smooth things over superficially. All you care about is avoiding responsibility. That hit home, and Ryan glared at me in silence. Because of your actions, the bank has lost $350 million. The branch manager was willing to apologize with you, and you wasted that. Even a newcomer should understand the gravity of their actions. Reflect on this properly from now on. Finally, Ryan had nothing to retort. He opened his mouth several times as if to say something, but no words came out. In the end, Anderson processed the cancellation, and I transferred the corporate account to another bank.
I truly apologize for this time and thank you for using our services over the years. If there's ever a chance, please consider using us again.
Anderson politely saw me out as I left the bank. Though I feel sorry for Anderson, I doubt I'll ever consider using this place again. Anderson had been generous in his response to Ryan's actions, considering Ryan was still in his first year, opting for a severe reprimand and a pay cut with the intention of retraining him from scratch. However, it seemed Ryan couldn't stand being scolded severely. He probably wasn't used to being reprimanded. Despite Anderson's kindness, Ryan wasted it, sulking and letting his work attitude deteriorate further. His colleagues looked at him coldly. He caused a major problem with his actions, yet showed no remorse and sulked instead. No one was willing to cover for such a person. Ryan seemed to have become isolated. Anderson had been willing to look after him until the end, but Ryan pushed him away. "It's your fault I'm in this situation," he lashed out, eventually quitting on his own by slamming down his resignation letter.
There are plenty of companies that want me.
He left with those parting words, but real life was not so easy. Ryan thought he would quickly find another job, but he was repeatedly rejected at the document screening stage, not even making it to an interview. He hadn't realized how harshly the world judges a newcomer who quits within a year. Unless it was due to illness, injury, or an exceptionally toxic workplace, quitting so soon is generally seen unfavorably, and Ryan's case was simply running away. Even if he managed to get to an interview, pausing would be difficult. Having been part of many interviews, I've seen a lot of people. Among them were young individuals who, like Ryan, quit their jobs shortly after starting. I've heard various reasons, including complaints about their previous companies and admissions of lacking patience. We've hired such young people if they seemed capable of continuing with us, but if I were the interviewer, I wouldn't choose Ryan. He hasn't shown remorse for his actions and would likely quit again if faced with similar circumstances. Experience teaches you to recognize such tendencies. Without a change in attitude, he won't find employment. After starting to use online banking, with my son's support, I've become proficient in its use. Once accustomed, the convenience and time-saving aspect of not needing to physically go to a bank is significant. While I can forgive Ryan, this situation has been a good opportunity. As you age, there's a tendency to be resistant to new things. However, I now aim to be more open to adopting new technologies. Riding the wave of change like that, I want to work as long as possible.
Get out of the way, you filthy old man.
It's the worst having to work at such an old age.
Don't worry, we won't end up like that old geezer.
Right. We worked hard in college and finally got a job at this major company.
Exactly. Without an education, you can only get a job like that, right?
No thanks. We're on the fast track to success.
I was disappointed by the words of this year's new employees. They all graduated from prestigious universities.
John, you've got to give them a piece of your mind.
No, I think people like that won't understand unless they go through it themselves.
You've always had such a big heart, John. Your dad was a great man too.
My dad was strict. He didn't let me go to college and only said I had to work.
Well, that's true, but I wouldn't have been able to keep working if it weren't for your dad.
Helen, who was cleaning with me. is now 75 years old but still very energetic. My name is John Uriver. I am 62 years old. I thought to myself, life flies by so fast. I've also come to feel the changes of the times. I've worked hard behind the scenes until my dad's company grew this big. I am who I am today thanks to my strict dad and Helen. As Helen says, my dad was a truly serious person. My dad was born in the early 1930s, and he often talked about his war experiences. In a time when there was nothing to eat, my dad and his brother survived by luck, since they were too frail for the war. Afterwards, they survived on potatoes and scavenged books from their burnt house, waking up at 3 a.m. in a barracks to bake cornbreads and pushing a cart to sell them at train stations for income. When cornbread sales began to decline, my dad noticed a black and white advertisement in the newspaper. He started a small advertising company with the money he had saved. Running around for ad sales and operating printing machines became their daily life. As times changed and supermarkets began to open, advertising for sale items became busy, and Helen, who had been hired as an office worker back then, has been working hard ever since. As far as I can remember, my dad's company was still busy, and I often visited his factory. I'll never forget the smell of ink from those times. Life was still unstable, and though I studied hard in elementary school, my dad always said, "Read books." Our house was filled with many books, but many books were too difficult for a primary schooler to understand. Although I was physically weak and not good at sports, my mom carefully considered my nutrition, and somehow, I managed to keep up with school despite frequent absences. Then, when I was in middle school, my lovely mom passed away suddenly. We began to live by ourselves, just me and my dad. My dad tried to stay strong, but I had no appetite and was tired of crying. During that time, Helen, the office worker, would always bring over dishes she made. Helen had lost her husband and was working hard to raise her 2 sons. She studied bookkeeping independently and handled the accounting, which my dad greatly appreciated. Watching my dad, I chose the high school via correspondence courses and worked in a kitchen at a newly popular restaurant while attending at high school. I gave up on college and chose commerce in my correspondence courses, learning typewriting, bookkeeping, and business. The basics of kitchen work were cleaning. I learned to wash dishes and serve meals there. What helped the most was getting 1 meal for free. I worked in the kitchen since I was 16, never quitting, attending weekly correspondence school classes at night, and practicing commercial business on a small typewriter I bought for home use. I graduated from a correspondence course at age 19. Despite the era moving towards computers, the restaurant had high hopes for me, and I worked there for 10 years. Following my dad's advice, I read various books and attended a vocational school for IT for 3 years. Computers were introduced to my dad's company. On Sundays, I worked in the restaurant, and on Wednesdays, my day off, I went to my dad's company. I married a woman I met at the restaurant and was blessed with a lovely daughter. By then, I was 30 and started helping with sales under my uncle. I expressed my gratitude to the long-supported restaurant and learning customer service alongside my uncle. Even though I was weak with alcohol, I gradually became stronger under my uncle's guidance. During the day, I accompanied sales while learning various languages through my computer at home, and was surprised to find that actual languages spoken by foreigners was quite different from what I had learned. I also learned German. My dad's company started trading internationally, growing steadily even without university graduates, as we had employees proficient in languages. Then, my dad, the president, was diagnosed with cancer and passed away within just 6 months. It reminded me of my middle school days when my mom passed away, and I had wished my dad could stay healthy longer. My uncle had married into a family with a daughter, so he had a different last name. But at 40, I acted as a shadow executive, consulting only on significant decisions and helping conclude deals. What bothered me was the dirty atmosphere at work, so, out of habit from my kitchen days, I made sure to clean the company whenever I had time. Thanks to my uncle's initiative, new employees like James in sales and Liam in HR experienced cleaning too. Helen, who had been with us for a long time, also took the lead in cleaning, and without a contract with a special cleaning company, the new employees learned from cleaning, striving in management alongside my uncle. As the area advanced into IT, I handled sales online. I cleaned the company in the mornings and did sales on the computer at home office in the afternoons. I created our website and communicated with my uncle and Helen online. Cleaning the company allowed me to understand the activities of each department, so only the longtime executives and Helen knew I was the son of the former president. James became the executive director. As for me, I was the shadow vice president, but went abroad for training for about 5 years. Curious about the unknown world, I worked in restaurants in various countries, immersing myself in authentic language and culture, changing my worldview entirely. I carefully observed how restaurants advertised and increased sales. Helen was a chief officer and frequently kept in touch with me. My uncle was somewhat averse to computers. Living abroad made me miss American food due to the cultural differences in cuisine. Having worked in the restaurant business for a long time, I learned from each manager that cleaning was fundamental everywhere. Later, I also worked as a cleaner in a hotel, where I enjoyed language exchanges in German with various international students. Life abroad was tough, but my wife and daughter were okay because she received my executive compensation, and my wife also got her salary from my uncle as an accountant, ensuring my daughter's education was secure. Cleaning at the hotel was very strict, but it was a good experience. When I finally returned to the USA, my uncle suddenly passed away. I was already 50, and he was of an advanced age. Losing family members one after another is incredibly sad, but it made me deeply realize that I had reached that age too. Although only 5 years of overseas training, Helen, James, and Liam kept the company going. Everyone held back their sadness at my gentle uncle's funeral. Afterwards, I took over my dad's company, but didn't show up at the office much, leaving Helen, my wife, and the executives in charge at the office. Even after returning to the USA, I did cleaning work only in the mornings and spent my days facing the computer at home, working on sales. Therefore, it may have been a rare company where there was no president's office in my company. However, with IT technology advancing so much, there was no need to physically be at the office. I always interacted with the young staff in the departments with a smile while mopping the corridors as the cleaning guy. And I had to sneak around to see if there was any harassment. I often went out for drinks with Liam, the HR manager. Liam, how are the new employees doing?
Well, quite a few quit after the initial cleaning training.
I see. That's tough. Maybe it's time we consider contracting a cleaning service.
Should we give it a try?
After discussing it with Liam, we decided to sign a contract with a cleaning company for the time being. Of course, I'll keep helping with the cleaning, just like before. Then, I observed the employees. I noticed a difference between those who had done cleaning before and those who hadn't. Those with cleaning experience always made sure to say thank you to the cleaning company's staff, never forgetting their manners. Those without experience seemed to think it was only natural to have others clean for them. It's true. You only understand what you've experienced yourself. One day, an employee spilled coffee and immediately called a cleaner from the company, who rushed to mop it up. But the employee didn't even say thank you. I wondered if that was just the way things are. Employees who have known me for a long time would greet me with, "Hey, uncle, good morning. You're looking energetic today." I'd respond with a smile, "Good morning. Let's both do our best today." I enjoyed such communication. Truth be told, maybe because I'm an only child, I've always found communication a bit challenging. My dad was strict, always telling me to read books. In elementary school, I was frequently ill and often hospitalized. But the cause of my illness was unknown. My mom was really worried, especially since I'd often faint during school assemblies and wake up in the nurse's office. My teacher said that photochemical smog was a serious problem back in my day, and I was particularly sensitive to it. It wasn't just me. Several kids would collapse, so I think that might have been the reason. I was also sensitive to cigarette smoke, common in teachers' lounges and cinemas where adults smoked freely. Perhaps due to my constitution, I had no interest in sports and, as my dad suggested, joined a reading club in both elementary and middle school. I kept to myself, except for one close friend from the reading club, and team activities weren't my thing. I got used to some teamwork when I started a part-time job at 16, though most of the work was solitary. That job helped me get healthier, and I grew to enjoy physical labor. Of course, I knew I'd eventually have to take over my dad's company, so I went to a business school. I liked cleaning, even though it was a solitary task. But I didn't dislike people, and I liked their smiles. That's why I'm happiest now when I can talk and share a laugh with employees who greet me. The current cleaning company employs many international students. I enjoy talking with them during breaks, thanks to my language studies. The break room for the cleaners is just a small space with a couple of benches among the cleaning supplies. College graduates who had studied all their lives. At first, they were exhausted from cleaning for employee training, and it was the only place where they could take a break. According to Liam, HR, not many employees quit after just 2 weeks of cleaning like they used to, but some couldn't keep up. Cleaning up after the employee cafeteria is tough, but I'm used to kitchen work from my past and often volunteer for it. Then I go home, take a shower, change into a suit, and work on deals from my computer. For major deals, I meet with James, the executive, in a luxury hotel restaurant. so current employees have never seen me in a suit. As Helen, who has been of great help over the years, approaches retirement, she called me at home. Helen, is something up?
Oh, John, I mean, the president.
Come on, Helen, I haven't changed a bit, so no need to call me the president. Is that so? Feels weird, huh? Helen laughed. Then she said, actually, I'm hitting retirement age, and thanks to you, my sons are independent. It's boring being home alone. I'm tired of being a senior staff, so if it's okay, could I work in cleaning like you, John? Helen, are you sure about working in cleaning?
Of course, it's for my health, please.
Well then, by all means, I'll let the HR manager know.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
And so, Helen became a cleaner. It was her wish, after years of managing the office, taking care of meals for my dad and me, and excelling as an accountant. I gladly and happily accepted the task. Then, starting the next week, Helen and I enjoy cleaning together. However, around that time, an epidemic became severe in the country. Most employees had computers at home and could use them, but some did not. The company provided those without computers at home with one, and everyone shifted to remote work temporarily. Supervision was undertaken by James, the executive vice president, Liam, the HR manager, myself, and Helen, whom I asked to help in the afternoons. In the mornings, Helen and I would wear masks, do some cleaning and general patrolling before switching to remote work in the afternoon. Sorting documents was handled by various department heads, but I figured employees wouldn't like being watched over. Some employees slacked off during remote work, a situation that lasted for a year. The company's performance suffered and sales dropped. Every company had to overcome these challenges, and supervision became difficult. We coordinated supervisory shifts over cell phones and had several remote meetings with the executive vice president, which led to the decision to issue pay cuts to the slacking employees. We also had to temporarily terminate our contract with the cleaning company. The food and beverage industry continues to lose money and no more advertising requests. The company had been doing well until then, but we had to accept reality. I pondered deeply. I decided to establish a small subsidiary in the countryside. It pained my heart, but due to the noticeable slackers, I had no choice but to reassign those employees to the regional branches as a form of demotion. Since I wasn't making my presence felt as the president, I regretfully asked James to handle this task. It was a tough year, trying to keep the company afloat while issuing pay cuts. The following year, only employees who had diligently worked remotely started coming back to the head office. No employees quit, although they were left to go to the countryside. International transactions also decreased significantly due to the lack of direct negotiations. But somehow, we all managed to get through the tough times. Helen, James, and Liam really stepped up during these two difficult years. Remote work lasted a year, and with regulations from the government slowly easing, we gradually started returning to normal. This year, new employees are joining us. Then, the flowers fell in April, and Executive Director James smoothly conducted the orientation for new employees. We also renewed our contract with the previous cleaning company. and we started the training for new employees. As usual, I was cleaning inside the company. On the last day of the new employee training, I encountered a new employee.
Get out of the way, you dirty old man.
Ending up in such a job at his age, that's just the worst.
Don't worry, we won't end up like that old guy.
Right. We worked hard in college and finally got a job at this major company.
Exactly. Without an education, you can only get a job like that, right?
Ah, that's dreadful. Yay, we're on the fast track to success.
I was disappointed by the words of this year's new employees. All the new employees this year were graduates of prestigious universities.
John, you should say something to them.
No, I think people like them need to experience this kind of work to understand.
You've always been so broad-minded, John. Your dad was a great man too.
I saw the name tags today. It was Andrew and Tim.
As expected of you, John.
This went beyond disappointment. It was essential to teach the younger generation about what's important. So, I immediately asked James and Liam to prepare for another orientation the next day. Liam contacted the new employees. The next day, I stood in front of the meeting room in a suit. James and Liam also stood beside me. The new employees walked in, one after another.
What's with a second induction orientation? I've never heard of such a thing before.
I'm hearing about this for the first time too. Just when we thought the training was over, some of them were mumbling as they entered the room, while others looked pale and nervous again. Then Helen appeared, suited up just like old times. She was a smart woman. Instead of a skirt, she wore a sharp pantsuit, looking as distinguished as ever. Despite being 75 years old, she looked no different from someone in their 60s, just like me. Then came Andrew and Tim, who had yelled at me the day before.
What's this all about? So tedious.
He muttered, seriously. What kind of company does this? Then they saw me, standing in a suit.
Isn't that the cleaning guy from yesterday?
What's this? Hilarious. Wearing a suit, it's like putting a costume on a grandpa.
And that one next to him. Isn't that the cleaning grandma?
Exactly. Are they going to become employees or what? Two of them looked down at me. They looked down on Helen, too. The executives present started to tremble. Well, it looks like everyone is here. Shall we begin? Everyone lined up in front, including the shaking James. James started off with a speech.
To all new employees, congratulations on completing your training. For the first time, our company is holding a second induction ceremony. As I introduced myself last time, I'm the Executive Vice President, James. Today is unusual because our president is here to give a speech and conduct this second induction orientation.
The president of this place. I heard he hardly ever shows his face.
Yeah, so a second time. Oh, the room buzzed with whispers. Then I took the microphone. Everyone, well done on your training. I am John Uriver, the president. As I said this, the room buzzed again, and the faces of Tim and Andrew went pale.
That's the cleaning guy, right?
I saw him too. The cleaning guy.
It seems I've surprised everyone. I've been observing your training. I have something very important to share. Congratulations on graduating from prestigious universities and joining our company. However, there's one regrettable thing. I found those who look down on others among the new employees. There are various jobs worldwide, and they all support our lives. There is no discrimination based on occupation or age. 2 people here have realized this. Tim and Andrew, please stand up. As I said this, they stood up with a pale face. I've seen your resumes. Both of you graduated from top universities, but looking down on others as you did dishonors your alma maters. Today, your departments have been decided. You 2 will spend a year in the cleaning department. The rest of you will receive department assignments from your directors shortly. As I announce this, the 2 university graduates tremble. Let me escort our distinguished graduates to the field now. I expect great things from everyone else in your assigned departments. That concludes my speech for today. I handed the microphone back to James and took them and Andrew to the cleaning supply room.
President, I'm deeply sorry for yesterday, and today as well.
President, I sincerely apologize.
Enough apologies. What is important is the work on the ground. I handed them work clothes and told them to change in the locker room. Then I changed into my work outfit as well. Helen also appeared in work clothes.
Tim and Andrew, of course. I'm indeed an old lady, but you know, all executives started from cleaning at some point. Prepare yourself. I'll be training you thoroughly.
Yes, Helen. We look forward to working with you.
I am sorry for calling you an old lady. I understood.
With that said, the 2 graduates of the prestigious university were left blue in the face and became cleaners. I had them sit on the couch in the tool room. It's easy once you get used to it. Don't worry. Our company doesn't have a president's office, so in a way, this is it. Do you have any experience with part-time jobs?
Yes, as a tutor.
I was also a tutor.
Interesting. How about languages?
I can of course speak German.
Me too, but only German, basically.
That's reassuring. Our company didn't have a cleaning service back in the day, but now, our cleaning service employs various international students as part-timers. I hope you'll take this opportunity to learn as many languages as possible. I've similarly taught myself. Our company will continue to engage in various international transactions. This opportunity will surely become a foundation for you. I said a year, but depending on your efforts, 3 months could suffice. Learn not to discriminate based on nationality or job during this time. If you work hard, you can quickly move to sales or an interpreter position for international relations. I want you to do your best.
Yes, President, I understood.
We'll do our best.
I took the 2 out first to clean up food scraps and other things in the company cafeteria.
It stinks.
Tim, don't you eat out.
Yes, I do.
People doing this kind of work allow you to enjoy dining out, right? Remember that well.
Yes, I understand.
Though I said a year, of course, I moved them to office work after just 2 weeks. Both of them said it was a very good learning experience. Thank you. They're now working hard at their desks. Helen also taught them how to use a mop properly. Later, Helen, who had been with us for a long time, retired to live with his son. 3 years later, I reached retirement age and continued to clean in the mornings as chairman, leaving the presidency to James, the executive vice president, and Liam, the HR manager, who became the vice president. I'm still surrounded by my 3 grandchildren, living close to my daughter and her husband, and I'm happily spending my days with my wife. 15 years later, I look back on my life. Tom and Andrew have become department heads and managers, taking good care of their colleagues and making commendable progress. Though I may soon face the end of my life, I vowed to watch over the company my dad and uncle founded to the very end.
Why did you even apply to our company, which requires a college degree, when you're just a high school dropout? Your resume isn't worth looking at. You don't even have the qualifications to apply.
During the final interview at a top-tier company, the interviewer, a graduate of a prestigious university, turned out to be my former classmate from high school who always looked down on me.
Decisions made, no job for a poor high school dropout. Got anything else to say?
The sound of tearing paper echoed in the interview room as the interviewer ripped up my resume. I was momentarily surprised, but then I smirked and retorted, "Good luck with your job search starting tomorrow." Huh? The interviewer looked confused, not understanding what I meant. Of course, he wouldn't understand now, but everything would become clear tomorrow, and he would be plunged into hell. I'm nervous. My name is Kevin. Dressed in a suit, I went to an interview at a certain company. This company, located in a prime location near the station, with its own building in downtown, was overwhelming with its magnificent structure. I entered nervously and waited quietly at the reception. Entering with a student's mindset was a fresh feeling. I was a so-called high school dropout, having left high school prematurely. During my high school years, I was subjected to a lot of harassment and bad-mouthing from my classmates, which eventually led me to become a truant, unable to attend school. I reminisced about those days. I'll never forget the days of harassment from my classmates.
Kevin, you're so gloomy and weird. Don't look at us.
The ringleader of the bullying was Jim. His grandfather was a city councilman with a lot of power, so Jim thought very highly of himself. He had many followers, and everyone looked up to him. On the other hand, I was introverted and ate a lot due to stress, so I was a bit chubby back then. This made me a target for teasing and harassment from my classmates.
Hey, fatty, move. You're blocking my way.
Does it smell like pig here? It stinks, doesn't it?
Jim's cronies would say this while snickering and looking at me. Jim seemed to enjoy it, watching and laughing. But I, who had good grades, once scored 100 on a test. The teacher was happy for me, as if it were his own achievement.
Kevin, you got 100 again on the test. Everyone should take a leaf out of his book.
Come on, teacher. Why are you giving special treatment to Kevin?
We can't study as well as Kevin, can we?
Stop making excuses and study, you guys.
This only made my classmates resent me more, and I became more isolated. Jim, especially, seemed to dislike my indifference to currying favor.
His dad's not around, so he's got it easy.
Must be nice having no one at home to get mad at you.
Maybe he's secretly a mama's boy. Haha.
The fact that my father had passed away became another reason for mockery. I gradually withdrew into myself due to the relentless teasing and harassment, eventually leading to my truancy. My mother tried to protect me by complaining to the school, but Jim, being the son of a local influential figure and having a good public image, was believed by the teachers. That's right, at school, there was not a single person on my side, not even the teachers.
You've done nothing wrong, so don't blame yourself.
My mother, Mary, respected my decision and said it was okay for me not to go to school She took me out to lift my spirits, even taking me to her workplace, and had me do simple chores to build my confidence. It helped me so much. I can't thank her enough for her support during those times. Years have passed since those days of gratitude, and now, thanks to my mom's introduction, I work as an office clerk in a small firm. The reason I'm interviewing now is that the form is dissolving, and I was referred for the interview by the office manager. As I sat nervously in the waiting room, a man noticed my anxiety and struck up a conversation.
Are you also here for the interview today?
Yes, you too.
Yes. It's strangely nerve-wracking before an interview, isn't it? My name is Mike.
I'm Kevin. Let's both do our best. Talking to Mike, a recent graduate, in the waiting room helped ease my tension a bit. Then, looking around, he whispered,
But this company, while its business is attractive, there's talk on social media about the interviewer's high-handed attitude.
Really?
Not to eavesdrop, but I heard everything. I'm Jake. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Jake, another candidate with keen ears. He joined our conversation, sharing a story about a friend who had faced intimidating remarks in their interview. The more we talked, the more anxious I felt, but I shook off the nerves and took notes of their detailed stories.
Notes for the interview?
Yes, I thought it might be necessary. I have a suggestion for both of you. As I explained my proposal to the intrigued pair, I handed them something, which they accepted and tucked into their pockets. Then, with nerves high, the interview began. The interviewer was alone, and his face was familiar. It was Jim, my former high school classmate who had bullied me. Noticing me, Jim smirked unpleasantly. He enjoyed the situation just like he used to.
Kevin, the high school dropout, long time no see. What have you been up to since dropping out of high school? A neat.
As soon as I sat down, Jim mocked me, but I remained calm. Meanwhile, Jim bragged about graduating from a public university and becoming the rising star of the company, even talking about succeeding his grandfather as a councilman. All unsolicited.
Hey, are you listening? Same old silent guy, ho?
Of course, I'm listening. Please, continue. Seemingly annoyed by my quiet demeanor, Jim's mood visibly soured, but I didn't want to add fuel to the fire and urged him to go on. Taking this as a cue to continue, Jim's mood changed completely, and he happily resumed his monologue. As the interview neared its end, Jim, smirking again, posed another question.
Why would a high school dropout apply to our company, which requires a college degree?
I've written it in my resume, so it would be great if you could take a look.
Your resume isn't worth looking at, haha. You don't even have the qualifications to apply, haha.
In response to my calm demeanor, Jim suddenly grabbed my resume from the table and tore it to shreds.
No job for a poor high school dropout. Anything else you want to say?
As my resume fluttered around, torn apart by Jim, he grinned at my shocked reaction. But my surprise was only because I didn't expect my resume to be torn, as the rest of the conversation had gone as anticipated. I stood up calmly, forced a smile on my face, and said to Jim, "Good luck with your job search starting tomorrow."
Huh?
Jim, the interviewer, was taken aback by my unexpected words, looking utterly shocked. I left the place without further interaction. The next day, I was on my way to that same company, accompanied by my boss, David.
Wasn't he a former classmate of yours? You probably didn't want to see him, right?
David, who knew about my past, expressed his concern, but I shook my head. It's for work, so I won't be selfish. Besides, I'm not who I was back then. I want to teach him a lesson.
You'd be a scary enemy to have.
Initially, David looked intimidated by my determined expression, but in the end, he praised me as a reliable subordinate. He really is a dependable boss. I stood up calmly, forced a smile on my face, and said to Jim, David said that with determination as he knocked on the door of the CEO's office of the company where I had my interview the day before. Inside, CEO Michael was present. After seeing us, he asked his secretary to call the person responsible for the whole situation. Shortly after, Jim entered the room, his face pale.
Kevin, what the hell did you tell them at the company?
Jim, noticing me, rushed over and grabbed me by the collar.
Stop that, Jim.
However, after being sternly reprimanded by the CEO, Jim, who had grabbed me, glared at me fiercely and then roughly let go of my shirt. He sure knows how to obediently follow those with more power than himself.
Do you know why you've been called here?
Michael asked Jim, who responded with silence. Seeing this, Michael sighed and introduced David as a lawyer.
Nice to meet you, Jim. I'm David, a lawyer. We're here because several students are planning to file a lawsuit against the company for the mental distress caused by your oppressive interview techniques.
There seems to be some misunderstanding, Jim muttered, trying to downplay the situation. I didn't let him off the hook and took out a tablet I had prepared. I have proof of the oppressive interviews. I'll play the recordings from this tablet. I operated the tablet, playing each recording one by one.
You don't say much, do you? Aren't you told you lack personality? You're not pretty, are you? Shall I teach you how to be pretty? Oh, you graduated from that university. It's full of dummies, so you're probably useless for this company. Looks matter, you know. Ugly people should get plastic surgery before coming for an interview.
All these were in Jim's voice, and his face grew paler as he listened. The CEO's face was flushed red with anger. Although he hadn't known about it until now, he must be especially furious to have had such a person conducting interviews at his company. Of course, we have witnesses.
Please, call in those two gentlemen.
Understood.
Understanding the situation, the CEO instructed his secretary, who then left and returned with two individuals. Those two were Mike and Jake, whom Jim recognized and who had waited with me in the waiting room yesterday, each having their separate interviews. I had given voice recorders to these two gentlemen, who were also here for interviews. I asked them to start recording when their turn was close. Here's what we captured. I took the voice recorders from Mike and Jake and played them.
This is Mike. I was drawn to the attractive job description of your company.
You're dreaming if you think it's easy here. I'm strict, and I'll fire you quickly if you annoy me. Understand?
I'm Jake. I applied after seeing your job posting, eager to engage in this line of work.
It says here you have a good memory. That's it. Frankly, it's all about whether you can work or not. Well, you're from that university, so I guess you're useless, haha.
After playing each voice recorder and listening to the end, I turned off the recorders. Just like during my interview, both Mike and Jake had endured a barrage of harsh words followed by being subjected to Jim's boastful stories. As everyone's gaze turned to Jim, his face was sweaty, and he stammered in response.
This was all to test the students' resilience.
Some students have actually suffered mental and physical health issues due to your interviews. We have medical certificates to prove it, so we can't just write this off as a resilience test.
David then pulled out a doctor's diagnosis from his suit and presented it to Jim. Reacting impulsively, Jim snatched the diagnosis from David's hand and tore it up, just like he had done with my resume. I had anticipated this, so I informed him that we had kept the original diagnosis safe and only presented him with a copy. At this revelation, Jim's face turned beet red. He never learns from his own actions.
A high school dropout, huh? What are you trying to pull here?
Jim shifted his gaze from David to me, looking like he was about to grab me again. I think there's a misunderstanding here, so let me clarify. Yes, I dropped out of high school, but I went on to graduate from college.
Huh? What are you talking about? Have you lost your mind?
Jim, unable to comprehend what I was saying, tilted his head in laughter. I understood that someone with his limited understanding would find it hard to grasp. In fact, after dropping out of high school, I had taken the high school equivalency exam and passed. I then enrolled in a prestigious university's law school and later attended law graduate school. David was a friend of my late father and a lawyer. My mother had worked in David's office when I was in high school. During my truancy days, it was David who had given me small tasks at his office.
Hey, Kevin, you're doing great. You've got a bright future ahead of you.
I remember David being very kind to me, as I was allowed to come and go in his office from a young age, and he knew my situation well. My mom respected him greatly.
You can do it, Kevin. You'll pass for sure.
Encouraged by David, I completed my judicial clerkship at his office this year and successfully passed the final exams. David was overjoyed, embracing me as if it were his own achievement. I still work in his office today. Also, David occasionally gave lectures at the university as a visiting professor, where students approached him about oppressive interviews.
I'd really like you to go undercover, Kevin. How about it? Will you give it a try?
Me? I'm not sure. I don't have much confidence.
Don't worry. Just go for the interview and record it. By the way, here's the info on the interviewer.
I was shocked to see the name Jim and his photo on the document. It was definitely him, the one who had bullied me in high school. David, please let me handle this job.
Well, you're suddenly eager. Do you know the guy?
David asked tentatively, and when I reluctantly confirmed, he started to worry and even considered calling off the job, which made me laugh. His reaction back then was quite amusing. It was undoubtedly Jim, the same person who had harassed me in high school. Several students who had been subjected to Jim's oppressive interviews decided to sue, and it was natural for me to attend the interview without raising suspicion.
David and I have known each other for a long time. I was surprised when he asked to investigate our company, but I agreed because such interview practices should not be happening.
Michael and David were acquaintances, and they had arranged for my undercover operation. As Michael informed Jim on this, his face turned even paler.
We, as a company, need to take responsibility for this. We intend to compensate the victims who suffered under your interviews.
What?
We will also hold you accountable, Jim. We'll seek damages from you.
Michael then announced disciplinary dismissal to Jim for causing significant harm to the company.
No, boss. I didn't mean any harm. I was just testing their stress resilience.
Weren't you just relieving your own stress? Plus, it seems you've been under a lot of stress from your gambling losses.
Jim was known to be an avid gambler, often pouring money into gambling. He was frequently irritable after gambling losses, seemingly taking out his frustration on interviewees.
Boss, please forgive me. It wasn't intentional.
If I forgive you now, more victims will suffer, and I can bear that thought. Sorry, but I won't budge on my decision.
But please,
Jim pleaded with Michael, but he was firm and unyielding.
Even if it wasn't intentional, that doesn't make it right. I want you to understand that. David, I'd like to officially assign this case to you.
In that case, how about assigning Kevin for this task? He was the one who went undercover for this investigation, and if you agree, Michael, I'd like to recommend him.
Of course, that's fine. If you say so, I trust Kevin can handle it.
Leave it to me. I was determined to fulfill the task I had been given. Jim was still in disbelief, shaking his head in denial. He really doesn't know when to give up. Should I also sue you for defamation and insult? I've suffered mental and physical distress.
you don't look like it at all. Besides, there's no way I'd lose to someone like you, Kevin.
Shall we proceed with the legal process?
You can't do that. My grandfather won't allow it.
Jim threw a childish tantrum before fleeing the CEO's office. We were utterly dismayed that a man nearing 30 still relied on his grandfather, the city councilman's influence. Our investigation revealed that Jim had joined the company through his grandfather's connections. Because of this, he continued to act arrogantly, just like he did as a student. After he moved to the HR department, his attitude became a concern for the company, especially since it was affecting its reputation among job-seeking students. However, there was no concrete evidence at the time. That's why I collaborated with Mike and Jake, who had their interviews on the same day as me under the guise of a proposal, and had them carry voice recorders in their pockets. As expected, Jim's abusive language during the interviews served as evidence, leading to this lawsuit.
I can't believe the guy interviewing with us was a liar.
Do you actually have a lawyer's badge or something?
Right after leaving the CEO's office, Mike and Jake bombarded me with questions. It seemed like it was their first time meeting a lawyer, and they looked at me with eyes sparkling with admiration. Of course, here it is.
Wow.
I showed them my lawyer's badge, which I had kept hidden during the undercover operation, eliciting cheers from them.
I should have aimed to be a lawyer too, especially after that interview. I'm not sure if I passed. The CEO had surveillance cameras in the interview room, so he'll review the footage and inform you both of the results later.
That's great.
Mike and Jake were visibly relieved, making me feel somewhat guilty for involving them in the investigation. I reattached my lawyer's badge and apologized to them sincerely. I'm really sorry for dragging you both into this without revealing my identity. I made you both feel anxious, didn't I?
What are you talking about? If you hadn't gone undercover, we would have been unfairly rejected based on that interviewer's whims.
Seriously, we owe you big time for saving us from an unjust rejection.
Hearing them say that made me feel that my undercover efforts were worthwhile. Seeing their relieved expressions, I felt glad that I could make them happy, and at the same time, relieved that we were able to prevent any further harm.
Since we're all here, how about having lunch together?
That sounds great, Kevin. Will you join us?
I'd love to. After checking my watch and seeing I had time before my afternoon duties, I agreed to join them for lunch. It felt like making new friends. Their friendly demeanor naturally brought a smile to my face. Later, I learned that Mike and Jake were successfully hired, while Jim was officially fired. I conveyed the news to them, and they were overjoyed. They thanked me again, so I emphasized that it was their own abilities that led to their success. Still, I bet they were really thrilled to be hired. Later, they invited me out for drinks, and I eagerly anticipated it. Meanwhile, Jim hadn't shown up at the company since storming out of the CEO's office. His parents had handled all the formalities with the company on his behalf. I wondered why he hadn't taken responsibility himself, but with the company's official decision, there was nothing more to say.
I heard Jim got fired from the company.
It's only natural. Honestly, it's a relief.
Apparently, Jim's arrogant behavior at the office meant no one was sorry to see him go. The atmosphere in the office has improved a lot thanks to you. I'm really glad I left it in your hands, Kevin. Thank you again. The CEO expressed his gratitude to me over the phone. I could almost see his happy face as he spoke. Just when I thought everything was settled, the next day brought a new development. The next day, Jim and his grandfather, James, visited David's law office.
I heard there's a lawyer named Kevin here. Could I meet with him? I'd like to discuss the matter regarding my grandson's commotion.
James, who arrived with a burly man in a black suit, asked for me. Surprised by the sudden visit, I braced myself, but James bowed to me sincerely.
I'm sorry for what my grandson did. I wasn't aware of his actions, and as his grandfather, I feel responsible.
I had heard James was a city council member, but he was more humble than I expected. He had believed in Jim, who was academically successful and good at maintaining appearances, and was unaware of the harassment Jim had inflicted. It seemed that Jim had been silencing others and using his grandfather's influence to his advantage. I never thought he would use my influence to bully others, James explained.
After asking his friends and local acquaintances, I found out he's been a fool. First, I want to apologize to you for the harassment since high school.
Saying so, James bowed again. Jim, though sulking, bowed slightly as well. I wish Jim would learn from his grandfather. Please raise your head. If you keep bowing, I feel like I'll be struck by lightning. I intervened, fearing James would keep bowing indefinitely. James then told me he intended to retire from politics because of this incident.
And I want to ask David to be my successor.
Me, I'm honored, but
David was planning to close his office and run for election, but being James's successor was beyond his expectations. His reaction showed he hadn't fully grasped the reality yet.
Is everything okay with this? Shouldn't we discuss it more?
You're famous as the only trustworthy lawyer in town, well-connected and well-regarded by citizens. There's no mistaking your qualifications. I'm not making this decision lightly.
James mentioned that since he was retiring, he would ask his supporters to endorse David. James's son wasn't interested in politics, and Jim was out of the question, so he had no one else to ask.
Okay, if you're sure, I'll take on the role.
Thank you. I'm counting on you.
David and James shook hands, agreeing to the proposal. Jim was set to help with James' form.
While I'm alive, I won't let you do anything wrong. I'll be strict.
James declared that enthusiastically, and Jim's face turned even paler beside him. Months later, David was successfully elected, and I took over his law office.
Doing well, Kevin.
Even now, David visits the office when he has time, and I'm truly grateful. To me, David is like a second father. I never thought our relationship would become so real. David, did you go on a date with Mom?
What are you grinning about? Is it bad to go out?
I teased David, who asked me back bashfully. Yes, recently David and my mom got married, having developed a relationship from mutual respect. No, it's great to see you so happy. I chuckled at David's newlywed happiness, radiating a joyful aura. Of course, I was happy for their happiness, and having David as my new father was an honor. It was easy to accept him because he had always been there for my mother and me. He has always been supporting us endlessly. He helped me through my mother during the times I was harassed in high school. And it was him who encouraged me and suggested taking the high school equivalency exam when I gave up on pursuing college. I am forever grateful to David. As for Jim, he's now struggling with a family farm business. With James, who retired as a city council member, keeping a strict watch on him, Jim apparently can't indulge in his previous habits of gambling and partying, not even managing to go out for drinks. I heard rumors that Jim's former classmates, who used to follow him around, don't even give him a second glance now. When I was set to meet everyone from high school at the reunion, I felt a sense of unease, recalling those times. But now, with Jim gone, all those who had followed him looked at me, now a lawyer, with respect.
I was just following Jim's orders back then. I really am sorry for what I did to you.
Kevin, I'm truly sorry. If it's okay with you, please give me your contact info. Let's meet up and have a drink sometime.
I accepted their apologies and ended the reunion on good terms. I've faced many hardships, but I'm glad for everything I've been through. I don't consider my truancy and inability to attend high school as a waste of time. The hurt I experienced back then has shaped me into someone who now wants to stand by and support those who are weak and wounded. This change in me is undoubtedly thanks to David. Now I aspire to be a lawyer who can empathize with others, just like David.
My husband is an elite director, totally different from you, a high school graduate,
said Emily, my former childhood friend and classmate, with a mocking laugh. Oh, so he's getting fired, huh? My classmate was shocked. What were the words I unleashed? My name is Jack Smith. I've just turned 30 this year. I've been married to my wife, Sophia, for 3 years now. Our marriage is filled with peace, thanks to Sophia's gentle and kind nature. One day, I found a stylish envelope in our mailbox at home. It was from Emily, a high school classmate I hadn't contacted in over 10 years. Inside was an invitation to a high school reunion. Why now? I wondered, but feeling eager to see everyone after such a long time, I decided to attend. On the day of the reunion, Sophia chose a suit for me, and I made my way to the venue. It was a standing reception, and everyone was already mingling freely. After greeting a few people and enjoying some food, Emily, who organized the reunion, approached me.
Look at this, an interesting group. Just a bunch of broke folks,
she said, looking down on us with disdain. Honestly, I wasn't a standout in our class.
It's been a while, Jack. I was worried about where you were and what you were doing.
Emily said mockingly. She and I are childhood friends who used to live nearby.
I'm getting married soon. That's why I gathered everyone here today.
Oh, congratulations.
My husband is an elite director, totally different from you, a high school graduate.
She said with a mocking laugh. Her words stung a bit, but not wanting to make a scene, I sincerely congratulated her. Everyone else also offered their blessings. Emily, looking pleased, continued speaking.
You guys, I'll definitely have you attend my wedding. Look, my husband is planning to take over the company with this marriage, so there will be a lot of guests on the groom's side. So I'm gonna let you guys, who were my high school classmates, attend as guests from the bride's side.
She handed out wedding invitations. Probably she just wanted to show off her wedding, but no one could say that and just accepted it.
You'll come too, right? After all, we're childhood friends.
Emily emphasized our childhood friendship on purpose. I've heard our mothers have been good friends since their school days. However, I lost my mother in 3rd grade and was raised by my dad, who worked in a machine parts factory. That's when things changed. After my mother passed away, my dad started drowning his sorrows in alcohol and gambling, and our lives took a drastic turn. We had to sell our house and moved into a rundown apartment. In high school, I couldn't even afford a new uniform and had to make do with worn hand-me-downs from relatives. In addition, my dad never came to school events like Parents' Day or graduation ceremony. To do all of those, I was subjected to cruel words like poo and dirty from my classmates. Seeing me in that state, Emily gradually began to ostracize me, and by the time we were in high school, she was leading the bullying against me. In my 12th grade, I asked my dad about applying for college. When I nervously brought it up, my dad yelled furiously,
"What are you talking about? I have no intention of sending you to college."
What? I was bewildered and stumbled over my words. Even after desperately trying to convey my wish to continue studying, my dad stubbornly refused to agree. My classmates noticed that I was going to start working immediately after high school, and that became the talk of the class. Emily, who was the center of attention in the class, was among those who ridiculed me.
Huh? You're going to work right after high school graduation. Well, you're from a single-parent family. It's sad you can't afford college because you're poor.
She said, and the other classmates chuckled. I wanted to change my circumstances somehow. The day I graduated from high school, I left home in silence and headed to the city by train alone. With no one to rely on, I was filled with fear and anxiety. Since that day, I've hardly returned to my hometown, let alone my parents' house. I only kept in touch with a few close friends occasionally. After that, I tried to find a job in the city, but there were hardly any places willing to hire a high school graduate. The only place that hired me was the cleaning company I'm working for now. Given my natural property towards cleanliness, this job suited me. I worked hard and, a few years later, when I was 22, I met Sophia at my workplace. She had a beautiful smile and was always polite to everyone. I felt drawn to her, and then she asked me out for a meal. From there, our relationship grew and led to marriage. When I decided to marry Sophia, I thought I should at least inform my dad, but he seemed utterly uninterested.
Well, someone's actually marrying a guy like you. She must have a quirky taste.
Dad, that's no way to talk.
Well, as long as you don't bother me, that's fine. Do as you wish.
I was hoping for at least a bit of happiness from him about my marriage, but his reaction left me disappointed. However, Sophia comforted me.
Your family is me, right, Jack? Let's focus on making our own happiness from now on.
I was so grateful for her words that I hugged her and couldn't help but cry. After that, I had almost forgotten about my family before getting married and classmates, but then suddenly, I received a wedding invitation from my childhood friend. When I got home, I casually discussed it with Sophia.
But this might mean your classmates want to reconcile with you, Jack. Maybe they've rethought things now that they're adults.
You think so?
Maybe you should go after all, huh? I'll go with you, of course.
Okay, let's go. Thanks, Sophia. The next day, I circled "will attend" on the invitation and sent it back. 3 months later, on the day of Emily's wedding, I dressed in a suit. Sophia had been wearing a dress since morning, getting her hair done, and I couldn't help but admire her. Together with Sophia, I headed to the venue. The wedding was held at a well-known large wedding hall in the area.
Guess the wedding's big since her fiancé will become the president of Goldman Industries.
Yeah, it looks like there are more than 300 guests. As we talked, we entered the chapel and waited for the bride and groom's entrance. Emily, walking down the aisle with her father, looked happy. Her father, beside her, seemed proud. I clapped, but watching the scene, I felt a bit envious. My dad never attended my wedding, and Sophia, considering my feelings, had suggested a wedding with just the two of us. We moved to the reception hall and headed to the friends' table where my classmates were. They were all curious about Sophia, some even asking about her educational background out of curiosity. She laughed it off. I gave Sophia a look, and we took our seats. Then, the reception started. Emily, now in a traditional wedding dress, was beaming. Her groom, Frank, looked like a modern, go-getter CEO. Everyone applauded them warmly. The guests included many executives and employees of Goldman Industries, all there to celebrate the couple's new beginning. Given this is the wedding of the president of Goldman Industries, a mid-sized machinery design company, it's bound to be a grand celebration. As the reception reached its midpoint, the bride and groom temporarily left for a wardrobe change. Seizing the moment, I decided to go to the restroom. I excused myself to Sophia and headed out of the venue. There, I unexpectedly ran into Emily and her husband, Frank, who had just exited for their photo session. Caught off guard, but I still managed to sincerely congratulate them. Emily, thank you for the invitation today, and congratulations on your marriage. Emily responded with a bitter expression, almost spitting out her words.
Oh, you actually came. Did you manage to prepare a wedding gift? You seem to have put in some effort to wear a nice suit, though.
Is this guy one of your classmates, Emily?
Frank scrutinized me, looking me up and down.
Yes, I was embarrassed to invite him, but he insisted on coming.
Embarrassed?
Frank inquired, glancing at Emily. I never insisted on coming. That's probably how all the classmates who attended today felt. We were here because Emily asked us to come. I swallowed those words, not wanting to ruin their special day. But Emily and Frank continued their disparaging conversation about me.
Can you believe it? This guy only graduated high school.
Emily pointed at me and said,
Seriously, well.
Frank laughed mockingly. The contempt in his gaze was unmistakable.
And he's married, too. What does his wife do, I wonder?
I answered honestly. She works in cleaning. I work at the same company. Emily and Frank exchanged looks, then sneered.
Eck, a dirty and smelly job. Perfect for a high school grad like you. I'd be too embarrassed to even mention I work at a cleaning company.
Yay, as a company president, I can even imagine. It's really the bottom of the barrel.
Hey, that's enough. I was angry, but Emily shooed me away with a dismissive gesture.
Just go home, will you? Don't infect us with your poverty.
Yay, why did you both even come? I bet your wife is embarrassed too. I mean, walking beside someone like you.
With that, Emily and Frank turned their backs on me and quickly left. I clenched my fists, trembling with anger. After being treated so terribly in high school, I still came to celebrate their marriage, only to be met with this treatment, mocking not only me but also Sophia and even our job. That's absolutely unforgivable. Then, a gentle hand rested on my shoulder. Sophia.
I heard everything. Jack, I have an idea.
Sophia's face was calm, but her tone carried a clear edge of anger. We returned to the reception hall together. When Emily and Frank re-entered after their outfit change, they visibly grimaced upon seeing me still there. I tried to ignore them, turning my face away. As the reception neared its end, the MC started walking around with a microphone. It seemed attendees were being asked for congratulatory messages. Employees of Goldman Industries praised Frank, and Emily's female friends, almost in tears, wished her happiness. The MC approached the table of high school classmates.
Here we have the bride, Emily's high school classmates. Could you please share a congratulatory message?
I was handed the microphone. Emily glared at me, as if warning me not to say anything out of line. I glanced at Sophia, who nodded quietly. I nodded back and began to speak. I'm one of the bride's classmates. I just have one thing to say. We at Smith Cleaning Services will no longer do business with Frank's Goldman Industries from now on. A hush fell over the room. I smiled and handed the microphone back to the MC.
What does that mean?
As the MC, sweating profusely, spoke, Emily raised her voice from the head table.
Sorry, everyone. This man is emotionally unstable and prone to lying. Despite being just a cleaner, he's embarrassingly making up such stories.
Frank followed suit.
Exactly. People like him don't belong here. Please remove him immediately.
The venue was enveloped in a tense atmosphere, and staff started approaching Sophia and me, who were sitting calmly. But then, a voice rang out.
Wait, are you both the president and the executive managing director of Smith Cleaning Services?
Frank's father, Bob, dressed in a tailcoat, said that with a genuinely surprised expression. Frank had taken over Goldman Industries from Bob upon getting married. Exactly. I am the head of Smith Cleaning Services, and this is my wife Sophia, the executive managing director. We are here today as the bride's high school classmates. As I said this, Frank's guests started murmuring.
Just a moment ago, the bride and groom told us to go home because poverty was contagious, and they said that they were embarrassed to have guests who do dirty, smelly jobs. Please forgive us for staying.
Sophia conveyed this calmly, and Bob, his face turning blue, began yelling towards the head table.
Apologize to them immediately.
But Frank and Emily replied with a half smile.
Huh? Dad, what are you talking about? Why should we apologize to guys like these?
Yay, what's so special about them?
Bob shouted, his voice shaking.
Frank, don't you recognize the name Smith Cleaning Services?
Smith Cleaning Services.
Realization dawned on Frank's face, turning paler by the second.
Could it be? Our major business client.
What? No way.
Emily was shocked at Frank's words.
Exactly. We recently contracted your company for the design and development of cleaning equipment.
Sophia added calmly, and I followed. And we also placed an additional order for the development of a new vacuum cleaner model. To tell the truth, Sophia is the daughter of the owners of Smith Cleaning Services, a top national cleaning company I joined after moving to the city. Currently, while running the cleaning business, we've also developed our cleaning supplies and recently ventured into e-commerce. Our company, unusual for a cleaning service, has grown to an annual revenue of $100 million with a staff of 6,500 at our headquarters alone. I, coming from a field perspective, was involved in developing successful cleaning supplies and eventually rose to the position of the head of product planning at the headquarters. That's how I met Sophia and eventually married her. Sophia and her family warmly welcomed me, despite my high school education. I worked tirelessly because I wanted to repay everyone, and that's how I got into my job. Last year, when Sophia's father retired, I took over as president.
If we lose the business with Smith Cleaning Services, do you have any idea how much loss we'll incur?
Bob was red with anger, shouting at Frank. He was trembling.
Oh, come on. I didn't realize.
You're not putting any real effort into running the business you inherited. That's why you even forget the faces of our business partners' CEOs? I shouldn't have handed over the president's position to someone like you. Come here.
Bob grabbed him by the collar and dragged him over to us. And he forced an apology.
Please forgive us. We can't afford to ruin a project critical to our company's future.
Beside Frank, Bob apologized as well.
I'm terribly sorry. Please forgive me.
Frank, while apologizing, was sweating profusely onto the floor. Watching this, Sophia turned to me.
Jack, what do you want to do?
Well, then he's fired. He's clearly not fit to be a president.
Huh?
When I said that, my former classmates around me raised voices of surprise, realizing the extent of my influence. Bob quickly spoke up.
Of course not. My judgment was wrong.
Well, I don't plan on forgiving them. I mean, I even placed an order for the new products, considering it as a wedding gift. I must have been a fool. There were screams of despair from the Goldman Industries attendees. I even saw their sales manager faint. I had decided to place an order for the new products with Goldman Industries after hearing that Emily was marrying the president of the company at the reunion. I thought she had invited me to the wedding because she wanted to reconcile, but that expectation was completely betrayed as Emily, with a stunned expression, turned red-faced and lashed out at me.
I don't know if you're the president or the executive managing director, but how dare you speak so arrogantly?
I glared back. Emily, maybe you should worry about yourself. If we stop our dealings, Goldman Industries will incur losses. Your dream of living a luxurious life as a housewife might be over. Upon hearing my words, Emily turned pale, finally realizing the gravity of the situation.
Jack, let's go.
Yay, Sophia. Frank and Bob continued their incessant apologies. I gave Emily, now pale at the head table, one last glance and left with Sophia's shoulder in my arm. After that, we indeed stopped our transactions with Goldman Industries. The company suffered major damage, and as a result, Frank was ousted from his position as president. Disowned by Bob, he lost his status and wealth. Emily and Frank, now constantly quarreling, eventually chose to divorce. With her family turning their backs on her and no one to rely on, Emily is now living alone, working night shifts. We, on the other hand, have been living peacefully as before. Recently, a lovely baby boy was born to us. Sophia and her family are overjoyed and adore him greatly.
I'm so happy I met you.
Sophia, I had once given up on life. That day I boarded the train, searching for somewhere to belong. I was actually terrified. Now, I'm truly grateful to my past self for taking that step. I want to visit my mom's grave with you, and, if it's okay, I'd like to see my dad with you, too. Sophia smiled softly as I spoke quietly.
Of course.
I plan to continue protecting my family and the company, living each day to the fullest.
Good work today, Lily.
I was approached in front of a large building. She is Lucy, a child of an employee who works in this building. This building is the headquarters building of a certain supermarket. I work part-time at one of the supermarkets, but sometimes I have to come to the head office building. I was relieved to see her face, which I hadn't seen for a long time, because she seemed to be in good health. I smiled and said hello to her, and she walked into the building. I followed her into the building. I had no idea that something like that would happen after that. My name is Lily. I am 67 years old and work at a supermarket.
Lily, what should I do with this?
I'm sorry, there is something wrong with the cash register. Can you tell me what's going on?
I am often approached like that by employees and part-timers working in the supermarket because I have been working here the longest. I only work part-time about 3 days a week, but I've been here for 40 years now, so everyone seems to trust me. Store managers and employees get transferred, but part-timers basically don't. I've taken some time off from work after getting married and having a baby, but I like working here, and I'm still willing to work here. My job at the supermarket is very diverse. I am responsible for the cash register, taking out products, placing orders, and managing sales. Moreover, recently the number of payment methods at the cash register has increased, so there are many new things to learn. Some people say it's hard work, but I enjoy the change. Working in this way makes me more sensitive to trends. Above all, at my age, I think it helps prevent me from becoming a blur. I sometimes have trouble keeping up with new things, but I have always had the personality that I have to do things on my own, so I have done things on my own by asking younger employees and part-timers. I can move my body, and it has been worth it. At this supermarket, it is a rule that employees hired at the head office are always given on-site experience. This year, again, the time has come for new employees to join the company. I am always excited to see what kind of kids they will bring in. But this year was a little different. Before the new employees arrived, I was called by the manager. He told me that one of the kids coming to our store for training was a well-connected employee. She seems to be the daughter of the head office manager. It's not that she needs to be treated differently, but she wants me to be aware of it. Well, that can happen. I didn't pay any attention to it, and the new employee had arrived. The girl I was told was a connection was 23-year-old Mary. Her hair was brighter than the other girls. She was wearing a worn-out uniform, and she was very different to look at. During the morning meeting, the manager warned her softly, "You're going to say that to me. I'll tell my father," Mary said. At this rate, she proudly said, her father is from the head office. Is she proud of her connections? I thought it was unusual, since many kids hide their connections these days, since people tend to think that they can join a company if they have connections even if they don't have the ability. Mary is arrogant and condescending to her peers, saying, "I'm better than you guys." For new employees who don't know the world yet, they will follow the orders of the head office or the daughter of the general manager. But for the part-timers, it is of little concern. I have never heard of a head office manager doing anything about a part-timer in a store. Because of Mary's big attitude, the part-timers often warned her. I often warned her, too. For example, when she was doing something incorrectly, I would gently tell her, "Mary, do it this way." She would sigh and say, "Yes, yes. Is this what you want me to do? Why do I have to be told what to do by a part-timer? I'm not sure why I should be dictated to by a part-timer." You can think what you want, but at least don't say it out loud. I'm the one who wants to sigh. She has made nothing but enemies, as she disrespects not only the part-timers, but also the employees, and even the store manager. Since I was the oldest, I was not affected by every single emotion of a child who had lived only 1/3 of my life. So I warned her every time she did something wrong. Mary naturally looked disgusted, but I would give her my attention as well, separating it from the fact that this was my job. Then one day, due to Mary's mistake in placing an order, an item that had been reserved by a customer did not arrive. I had told her many times to always check with someone else when placing an order, but she often said, "Why should I bother to check something as simple as this?" and often did not confirm the order. This led to this mistake. The manager was also checking the order, but he had a lot of other orders that day, and didn't notice the details. The customer is a store owner, and he had a problem if he didn't have the reserved ingredients right away. The manager tried desperately to call other stores to scrape up enough for the customer's reservation. We patted our chests as we managed to deliver the product to the customer in time. Meanwhile, Mary was acting all flustered and not apologizing. I was furious with her and said, "Mary, it was your mistake, and you should apologize to the customer. Shouldn't you at least thank manager who cleaned up your mess?" I said. Mary finally said, "I'm sorry, but it was only words." The manager and I could only sigh. In her words, she probably didn't like the fact that I, a part-time worker, had warned her. After that, Mary began to repeatedly talk down to me. "I feel sorry for you that you have to work part-time even at your age. Don't you get a pension? Doesn't your husband earn that much?" she said. "I like being a part-timer. Working part-time at the supermarket is good exercise, and I use my head a lot, so it helps prevent aging. Above all, I like talking to customers and seeing their happy faces," I told her, but Mary snickered.
How can you say that? A bottom feeder who works until the end of your life.
I was about to warn her about that, but Mary laughed at me and left. I wondered if it was such a great thing to have connections. There have been people with connections in the past, but they were people who worked hard regardless of such connections, so I was shocked to see Mary this time. She said I'm supposed to work at the head office, but what's with the on-site training? Why do I have to do this bottom-of-the-barrel job? I also heard her saying to her colleagues in an imposing manner, "I don't understand how someone who doesn't know the field can work at the head office. Don't think that someone who doesn't know what it's like to work in the field can be accepted at the head office." But in the end, she completed the on-site training and returned to the head office. A month later, I had some business to attend to and headed for the head office. Before entering the head office, I was approached by a voice.
"Lily, thank you for your hard work today. How are you?"
There are a number of people at the head office who know each other. The young woman who called out to me at this time was Lucy. She joined our store last year as a new trainee. She was well received by customers with her smiling face and bright smile. She is now working as a clerk at the head office. It makes me happy to know that there are other people who call out to me. In fact, today is the management strategy meeting, and I am here to deliver the voice of the front line. People at the head office are inevitably unfamiliar with the real voices of the front line, so I attend this meeting once every few months, where they ask me to tell them what is going on. While I was having a cup of tea in the break room before the meeting started, I heard a familiar voice. It was the voice that complained, "I've been released from all this field training crap, but all I'm doing is chores." It is Mary who is complaining. The person complaining was probably a coworker, but she looked a little annoyed. When I looked up, my eyes met Mary's, who was just turning toward me. Mary was clearly disgusted.
"Why are you here?"
That's what she thought. She could have just ignored me, but since our eyes met, I couldn't ignore her either, so I lightly bailed. I wanted to end it there, but she took the trouble to walk right in front of me.
What's a part-timer doing at the head office?
I tried to remain as calm as possible and told her, I've been invited to today's meeting. I told her only what was required, but Mary stared at me as if she didn't like what I was saying.
Are we going to have people at the conference who have to work until their life expectancy to survive? Oh no, poor people need to stay away.
There are many other people from the head office around us, and yet here she is again with this attitude. As I am thinking this, Mary says to the colleague next to her,
This lady is a part-timer at the store where I was sent for training. She even lectured me like a big shot just because I'm old.
Her coworker tries to stop her, but Mary is having none of it.
She says she loves to work, even though she's so broke at her age that she has to work. Isn't that funny?
Mary never stops attacking me. As I was wondering what to do, Lucy, who had just greeted me in front of the head office, came into the break room and flew over to me.
What are you talking about?
Lucy looked at her, turning pale, and said, What? Who are you? Mary glared at her. Mary continued, My father is the head of the department, and he can fire a regular employee like you at any time. Don't talk to me like you're a big shot.
You know what? Who do you think she is?
Lucy seemed to be shaking with anger at Mary's outburst against me. I felt sorry for her to have to cover for me anymore because she is a sweet girl, and I didn't want to make Lucy's position worse. So I said, Lucy, thank you, that's enough, let's go. And I was about to leave the place with Lucy. But then Mary said, You run away when things get a little bad. It's not right for you to lecture me. She looked down on me. Then a man entered the room. Lucy straightens her back at the sight of him. He comes up to me, and Mary looks at him suspiciously.
Lily, there you are. You weren't answering your phone. I thought you hadn't arrived.
It was my husband who said that. Lucy turned even paler and muttered, Boss. Hearing this, Mary turned even paler than Lucy. Lucy turned to Mary and said, Lily is the president's wife. Hearing this, Mary turns even paler than before. The supermarket where I work was founded by my grandfather. My father took over, my brother took over, and my husband, who married me, took over. My brother, by the way, is the current chairman of the board. I knew Lucy because we got along well during the training, and I had told her so, and we had met during the meetings. But Mary probably didn't think I was in such a position. When it came to Mary, she seemed to have grasped the situation and stopped talking at all and looking pale. My husband turned to Mary and said, You must be Mary. I had heard about you, but you are more than I expected. Mary started shaking and said to me in a weak voice, I'm sorry. She said in a weak voice, I'm sorry. But do you think you will be forgiven with such words? What are you apologizing for? You are only apologizing because you found out I am the president's wife, right? You can only see people from your position. That is very unfortunate. Besides, you are making your father's position worse. I wonder how your father would feel if he knew you were talking like this, I said to Mary. Mary looked pale and just repeated, I'm sorry. She just repeats, I'm sorry. I sigh. You know, a supermarket can't be run by employees alone. There are more part-timers than employees in our store. If you think you can look down on them because they are part-timers, you are mistaken. In your case, your father only has a position, and you are still a new employee. Make that mistake and you'll be in for a world of pain. Mary nodded, looking pale. My husband agreed with me and told Mary, "I'll let you know what the disciplinary action will be." Mary's face turned even paler at the word disciplinary action, and she ran out of the room. I thanked Lucy and said I was also surprised when I found out that Lily was the president's wife, but I love Lily regardless of that. She said. Then my husband opened his mouth next to me.
Lily was supposed to be the president, but she refuses to do it because she likes the field. So I'm the president. I'm not good at this kind of bossy position.
He complained a bit pathetically and scratched his head. I laughed at him because he certainly didn't look like the dignified president of a company. Because I knew that if I became president, I would not have the opportunity to deal directly with customers. I work here part-time because I enjoy interacting with customers. When I said this, Lucy smiled and said, "I think Lily would go out into the field even if she became president," though I laughed, imagining that she might. Then, at a subsequent meeting, my husband proposed a system whereby a person from the head office would also go to the field once a year to meet directly with customers. I was surprised that the idea we had just talked about had passed. Even more surprisingly, my husband hides his position as president of the company and is breathless with the idea of going to the field once in a while, and I am amused by that. The next day, Mary came to me with her father to apologize. At the head office, it seems that the incident in the break room yesterday spread quickly, and when her father heard about it, she turned pale. Mary, who did not apologize properly, was scolded by her father in front of me and cried. Mary, crying is not something you can be forgiven for. Do you have any idea how many people you have made uncomfortable? Go and apologize properly to the other part-timers, employees, and the store manager. I did not forgive Mary, who apologized with a hiccup. You can't take back what you've said, so I want you to show me with your attitude from now on. I thought that if I forgave her at this point, she might not be able to change, so I dared not to forgive her. He was so angry with her, from his own father and me, that she must have felt a little sorry for herself. I heard that she came to the manager's office later to apologize. Mary was making a lot of enemies at the head office as well, so when this rumor spread, there was no one left to cover for her, and everyone left her. They started talking about this behind her back, and she finally resigned from her job. Lucy later told us that she had apparently been living at her parents' house, but was kicked out and did not know where or what she was doing now. Mary got what she deserved. She should play fair and square, where she has no connections. Most of all, though, unless she fixes that personality, she won't do well anywhere. I think she should experience the harshness of the world firsthand. I am happily working at the supermarket today. However, everyone is a bit nervous today. The reason is that the president of the company himself is standing on the shop floor. "Welcome," my husband says charmingly. My husband, who is always smiling, doesn't look like a boss. I thought my husband was a little cute as he served the customers with a twinkle in his eye. The manager, who had never thought that the president would ever be on site, was very surprised, but he seemed to be enjoying watching the president. I think I will continue to work while staying close to my customers